Hello and welcome to another macro video. Today we're looking at some possible macros for fiction editing. I say possible because I don't actually do fiction editing, so I'm only offering these as ones that people might find useful. I have listened in to discussions between fiction editors and both locally with the local editors group and also online. And so I've picked up ideas of what might be useful, and I've tried to there's obviously all the macros that any editor would use, but I've also written some macros specifically for fiction editing, and so those might be useful. So first of all, let's have a look at an overview of the sorts of things that an editor might want to do, fiction editor. First of all, you might want to look at the book, look at the novel, and watch out for inconsistencies in the novel as a whole and highlight them. That might mean actually physically highlighting or putting highlights on the Word file, but it might also just mean noting those inconsistencies. And you want to record things in terms of what you want to make consistent, or how you want to make things consistent. So I'd put those in a style sheet, so it's a list of all the different points of consistency that you want to maintain within the novel, and it's good to keep a note of those so you can keep looking back to it and seeing that you've remembered correctly what you were going to do about certain aspects of the consistency. Then there are macros that can be used for navigating around the text. So if you're wanting to look at different bits of the novel and compare them and see what's going on, then you need to be able to move quickly around the document, around the novel, and there are lots of macros that can help you with that. You want to then perhaps make global changes to the novel, but then that comes before any line editing. So changing spellings and so on, which are clearly wrong, those can be done globally as you go through the individual chapter files, but then you edit each individual bit of the novel, and there are macros that will help with that. So those are the different areas that we'll be covering. And as we go, we'll have some video links. In other words, I've got lots of other videos describing some of these macros, and so I'll refer to those, and also URLs for where there is information available that you can look up on the net. So this document that I'm using here as a crib sheet, if you like. It started off as a Word document called Possible Fiction Macros that I put up on my website at that URL you've got there, and so I've then worked that into a document here for this video, and I will put this document that we're looking at now, I'll put this on my website at that URL so that you can use this as a crib sheet and look things up from it. So why are we using macros? Well, I guess two main reasons for me anyway. They allow me to do my job more quickly, which means that if it's a fixed fee job, then I'm going to be earning a higher hourly rate, and also I should be able to do it more effectively, I hope, which means that I get more satisfied clients and therefore more repeat business, I hope. So within this document I'm going to be giving a bit of a description of each of the macros, and some of them I will be actually demonstrating, but you will need the actual text of my book, which is available at the URL given there, and that will allow you to get a clearer description of each of the macros and how you use them, and obviously the macro listings themselves which you can then copy into your computer. And don't worry about the technical side of that at this stage, because that's covered in the book, and it's also covered in videos, sort of how to get started. But what I've done is to pull out from the book this in this document here all the bits from the book which are about starting up from scratch. So hopefully you can just look at that as a separate document rather than being faced with the whole book, which is a sort of rather massive tome. So you can get started with that if you've not used macros before. As I say, we've got videos on YouTube, 57 of them, and this is number 58. Okay, so before we're going to do before we can look at the consistency of the document, then we do need to have a single file of the whole book. Personally, I wouldn't advise editing a book as a single file. I would, for various reasons, which I've covered in various of my videos, I would always work in individual chapter files, but have an overall file to look at, to find things, to compare things, to check the consistency, and so on. So there's a couple of macros that allow me to pull together the contents of a set of files into one big document, and my favourite is the multi-file text, but either of those would do. So just to show you roughly what it does, when you run it, and I run that from here, multi-file text, there it is. So if I run that, it then pulls up a filer window, and I can navigate to the directory I want. So if I'm assuming this is the directory I want, these are all my chapter files. They're not, but that's by the by. So I then click cancel, and what the macro then does is to create a list of all those files in that directory, and I can combine the contents of those into one big file. Or if I cancel that, I can actually say that I do and don't want some of those, or I want them in a different order, or whatever. So I can change that around if I want to. Run multi-file text again, and when I try it a second time, let's try it mu multi-file text. When I try it a second time, it then recognizes that this is a list of files and says, do you want to collect the text from there? So I would normally say yes. So that will give me a file of the whole book. So let's have these bits out the side here are my prompts as to what file I'm wanting to use next. So if I load up the Perl secret, so as I say, I don't do any fiction editing. So what I've done is gone on to Gutenberg and found myself a suitable novel. Well, it's probably not suitable, but it's actually looks like it's sort of from the 1920s or something. Anyway, here's my text. So I've got the whole of the novel in one big file, so I can work on that. Right, so we want to look at some of the. I want to try to find inconsistencies in that not in the novel. First macro, which I do know from talking to fiction editors, they're very pleased with, is this one. So it's the macro is called proper noun analyze, and the file I want to demonstrate is called proper nouns. Where is it? I lost it. There it is. Okay, so I've run the macro called proper noun analyze on this on my novel, on that novel there, and what it's given me is this list, which is a bit meaningless in some ways. It's just a list of all the words that begin with a capital letter and how often each one occurs, and therefore it is potentially a way of finding pairs of words that are perhaps spelling errors one of another. So if I look down here and see what I can find, okay, it's found here Bill, Billy and Billy. Okay, maybe that's significant, don't know. Capitan, Circe, oh, that's probably a name, a circle. So you look down here and try and see if you can find anything. Duchesse, I don't know, well, that's just probably French. Estens, don't know. But it's up to you to see if any of these are names, like Lenin. Could that be a spelling error? Madame with an E? Don't know. That's presumably just a spelling error, isn't it? I think. Niçoise. Oh, no, that's an obvious. Well, to me, looks like a spelling error, isn't it? Pigott with 2 G's, Pigott with 1 G. So that's the sort of thing that proper noun-alize finds for us. Then we've got another one, which is another macro, full name alize, which is linked to that one. So if we get that one up, so what did I call it? Full name list, which is here somewhere. There it is, full name list. So what this is doing is finding what might be full names. So it then lists them for me either by the last name, so Sir Algy, Admiral Beatty, Juliet Claremanagh. So that's those, and it tells you how often Gutenberg occurs. And then it also lists them here, sorted by the first name, so you can look at those and just, well, it might help you to see if the names are mistaken in some way. But obviously it's up to you to look at those and you know what the significance is. The macro doesn't know, it just lists them for you, tells you how many there are of them, and it's up to you to make what you will of that information. Okay, next one is spelling error lister. So if we get our novel here, and if I run I won't do it because it takes a little while. If I run the spelling error lister, it comes up and it puts at the end of the document a list of what it sees as spelling errors. In other words, what words spelling checker says are spelling errors. So, and it lists the those that are all lowercase in one list, and then it lists those which have got an initial capital, because surnames, proper nouns tend not to be spelling errors, so it's quicker just to look through those and then try and find things that are spelling errors. So that's the lister, and then if you decide that ami and ami are okay, but analyze is an error, so if you put a highlight on it, then like cat's paw should presumably be cat's paw, and you can say that, well, that one, let's highlight that in a different color, and then when you run spelling error highlighter, it will highlight those words in those colors. So let's try running that. So spelling error highlighter, run. Right, so it says all those errors have been highlighted, and so I can look down, well, actually using a macro, find a highlight, please. Okay, so it's finding all these highlights. It's actually highlighting the wrong thing. I think I've probably got the wrong file here. Right, I've been off on a time warp and I'm back again. I'm trying to do this video in one hit. So okay, so look for a highlight, and the first one it finds there was analyze, and Bindby in yellow, and cast paw. Okay, so it's highlighted the where were they? Here they are. It's highlighted the words that I have put a highlight on in the list there. Okay, so let's get rid of that one. So we've highlighted them. Oh yes, I want that file back again. What in that list, what we had, I don't know if you noticed, which is down here. It's a great long list, and there's all these funny things here, which there's speaking, like something, and in the quoted text, they're using funny ways of writing and expressing what the person is saying in their own accent. Were, whether, and way, and whatever. Happens, have. Right. So there is a macro which should help with that, and it is the where is it? Here we are, quotation marker. And the idea of that is that you run the quotation marker macro, quotation macro run, strike through the quotations. Okay, that's done it. So what it's done there is that anything between double quotes there has got a strike through on it, and that strike through is used in lots of my macros to say don't touch this bit of text. So now if you do the spelling error lister and checking and so on, then it won't give you any of the spelling errors that are in the strike through bit. So I've got that prepared earlier. So if I get Perl 2, Perl secrets 2 in this list, so in this list the spelling error list is only those words there, and none, all those apostrophized ones are not there. So in other words, it's ignored the direct quoted text and only looked at the inconsistencies within the sort of running text there. Okay, so what's next? Let's get rid of that one. Right, chronology checker. The idea of this is that if you've got to look through the novel to make sure that the chronology is right and that people don't sort of do things after they've died or come on the wrong days of the week or whatever, I've written a macro which goes through the whole book and pulls out into a separate file any paragraph that contains a word or words that relate to time. So there weren't any in the novel I had, so I found another one, and so I want to load up chronology. So these are the chronology words out of A Candid History of the Jesuits by Joseph McCabe, courtesy of Gutenberg again. So there it's got the years and the word age, because that might, you know, at the age of 6, blah blah blah. And so each of these paragraphs comes from somewhere in the book, in order, obviously. I tried to stop my computer telling me about these updates, but it keeps telling me. Sorry about that. Right, so that's those. And if you look at the actual macro, so it's chronology, isn't it? CH chronology checker. Edit. At the beginning of the macro here, these are the words that it's looking for. So there's the days of the week, the months, and so on. But it's some of them are case sensitive, and some of them are case insensitive. So if you want like Monday and the abbreviations, those words might occur in parts of other words. MON might be part of MAY might be part of another word, and so on. So you can specify which words it shows you and how it works out whether to highlight them or not. That's probably too technical for the moment, but anyway, so it produces those paragraphs with the chronology in. Next is words and phrases in context. Okay, so we want the Great Pearl Secret, and we want to look down at the end. So what we're saying here is that if we want to find out about mentions of particular people or particular places, then we can create a list, and this words, phrases in context macro will look through the whole, it will look through the whole document, and it will highlight in those colours the those particular words, and I can even do it so that it does it case insensitively. So in other words, say for Van der Waal, that might occur with a capital V or a small v, but that will find either. And so then we should end up, let's go to the top, look for what we should end up with when you've run that macro, words, phrases in context, so let's find that. Words, phrases in context, there we go. Right, so it's pulled out the individual paragraphs where those words, those names, those phrases occur all the way through, so you can look through those, and obviously if you then want to track in each one, you can look through and find any given one, and actually if I have the original document there as well, if I want to find any of these, so let's have a look at this one. So I can use find same place to find where that paragraph actually is in the document, and it jumps backwards and forwards. You can jump backwards and forwards between the documents to have a look where those words occur in the actual in the context of the book as a whole. So let's get rid of that one. Right, catchphrase, yeah, this is trying to find out overused words and phrases. So if we add, let's have a look at this one. So we're looking for catchphrase, open catchphrase, here we go. Right, so in this file what I've got is it generates a list of you can decide how many words the phrases should be that it's looking for. It can take quite a long time to run this, and therefore it's all in the instructions, but you can choose the length of phrase in terms of the number of words, and it will find how often it occurs. And if it's more than a certain, you can specify that if it occurs more than 3 times, or more than 6 times, or whatever, it should list it. There weren't very many phrases in this book, and so I went right down to phrases of 4 words or 3 words, and then I told it not to not to list anything that was less than 6, occurred less than 6 times. So those phrases there, and again, if we want to see where a given phrase is, we can jump up. Oh, they're highlighted as well, that's right, so you can see where they are in the text. This is a text-only version of the book that this macro generates to make it easier to find these phrases. So you can find any overused phrases, which I'm sure you will do in incoming novels. Because obviously I was looking at a published novel, so it was a novel after it's been edited. So let's get rid of that. Right, so we're on to the next phase, which is to create a style sheet, or a list of things, of notes if you like, which you want to record the consistencies, the particular consistencies that you want. Dockerlize is one of those which I use on my technical work, and I think it'll be useful in what you're doing as well, hopefully. So if we look at Dockerlize, okay, what that does, it generates a list of various things. Whether the number 10 is a number or a number is obviously a technical thing. Serial commas, or no serial commas, that's only a very approximate count, but it gives you an idea if the author has generally used serial commas. We've got here unspaced M dashes, but there aren't any N dashes or whatever in this document. Curly brackets, single or double. How names and initials are punctuated. UK US spelling. Then for UK spelling, whether IZ or IS is used. That's halfway between the two, look. And for participles, whether the T version is used or the ED is used. So all sorts of things there, and that's covered in more detail in the book. Hyphenation, how things are hyphenated. Again, maybe more for non-fiction work, but that's explained in a video or demonstrated in a video. Add words to a style list. This is if you're creating a list of words that are significant from the document, you can just select a word so thread it, there we go. Oh yes, for UK spelling, then IZ to IS, this will count how many words there are, and it's fairly intelligent in that it knows about the exception words like advertise and citizen and so on, and you can change them globally with IS to IZ or vice versa if necessary. Right, navigating around the book, find same place is really useful. If you've got two copies of the file and you're trying to compare one with another, then you can jump backwards and forwards from one to the other using find same place, as I sort of showed you a bit earlier. And there's a video for that. Smart Finder finds all sorts of things: dates, years, postcodes, similar formatting, acronyms, loads of different things that finds. So it just sets up each time you select something, it sets up, you want a date, you want a year, it will set up the find and replace to find a year or anything that is a year, and then you can jump from one to the next with that. Instant find up and down, we've done that before. So if I choose the word next and go up, there aren't any more of those, but there are of those. So instant find up and down. Find highlight up and down, we've done that. We needed to look at the highlights in something. Find a colour up and down, so we can no, I can't find that one, that's wrong. Okay, but ignore that. So where are we? Yeah, so finding highlights up and down. Going to the next comment. Well, if you've got comments and you want to look through the comments, that's useful. And change. Oh, that's looking through the edits. If you've got the thing track change, then you can jump from one track change to another without actually looking at the comments, because normally if you ask it for the next change, it will include all the comments, or Word's own version of that. Threadit we've already mentioned, very powerful. If you've discovered that Jane is spelt incorrectly in some places, then you can change it globally from AYN to ANE. If colour is wrong, you can change it globally. Threadit is the subject of many videos, and the actual package, the Threadit package, Threadit is one macro, but it has loads of things that you can do with it, and so there's a whole package to do with that. So you can find that at that URL. When we come to editing line by line, there are a number of things we can use for that. One that might well be useful is where you need to change from different in a conjunction in a sentence. You may want to change it, so you might want that to be a full stop with a capital letter, or you might want it to be as it was a comma in a lowercase, or you might want it to be a semicolon. So you can chop backwards and forwards with these different macros. It just speeds up the process. and again there's a video for that. For this one did start from a fiction editor asking. The one above only works where there's a direct link between the either side of the quotation of the punctuation mark. So we did it so that we could change that one into so it can be comma he, sorry, full stop with capital He, or comma and lowercase he. Could be useful. Proper noun to pronoun. If the author has constantly said John said and John said and John this, instead of, and you want to change it to a pronoun, then this will do it for you. So you click somewhere ahead of the next pronoun and jump, if you get the right macro. Sorry, got the wrong keystroke. So we click in here somewhere and run the macro. So it goes along the line to find a proper noun and then changes it to she, but if you undo that, it goes back to he. So if it should have been, as in this case, if I undo it again, so what was it? It was Sue. Okay, so Sue should have been she, of course. So there's she. Now if I do it, if I run the macro again, it runs along the line and finds John, so I can undo once and I get back to he. Alright, so if you've got to watch, you've got to jump past the it will think that's a pronoun, a proper noun. So if I go to there, run it again, it's changed that one. Bother. Go past it and run the macro, so we get she, and go again. Albert's a he, so one undo, and you can swap that round. If you've got a document that's a novel that's mainly male characters, you can give the priority to he as opposed to the priority to she. You can change that at the beginning of the macro. Multi-switch, one of the most powerful macros I use. I use it every single day. So if you've got Jane, you can change it to Jane, and it uses a document here which has all a list of the words and the alternates. So I mean, they happen to be all together. There's loads of them. It's just that these ones at the beginning here are the ones that I set up for my document. So if the wrong spelling of Beverly, oh, that's the right spelling, change it back. If that's the wrong one, change it back. So what it's doing each time is looking at this list for, so that, if it changes to which, and you can see in the document it's found it in the list there. So if it's which, and I actually want that, and if it's something like is, I can change it to are, for example. Okay, and then so if you do it again, it is to are, and you can have you can put in all sorts of things, you know, as a result of, due to, as well as. You can put into this list any alternate words and phrases that you want, that your document is using. And it also does, for example, if there's he said, we had she said, there you go, we can try that one. So if I run it now, this time it says, no, hang on, if you look at the list, she said has got 3 alternates. So what it then does is throws up the 3 alternates, so then you can choose which one you want. You can say I want number 1, and you can have that one and not the other 3. A bit silly, but I mean my wording is silly, but it just illustrates the way the macro works. Okay, so let's move that out the way. That's multi-switch, and again multi-switch has got its own video that you can have a look at. And then there's the book's got over 600 macros, so there's loads of others. I've just listed some of the general topics here that might be useful. If you're handling lots of bookmarks, then there are macros that allow you to add and delete bookmarks and navigate around them. Comments, yes, adding comments. You can add standard comments to say, if you have to keep saying the same thing to the author or similar things, you can have a a standard comment device, and then you can pull the comments out into a list. Highlighting, there's loads of macros for highlighting and font coloring which are useful. If you want to go straight from various things like to a dictionary site, you can just click in a word, run the macro, and it loads that word into a particular web browser, a particular website. For example, I clicked in phrase, and so I've got the OUP's definition of the word phrase, for example. Loads of different internet access things, and lots of things, macros to do with track changing. No way of going into that now, no time. And then finally, we've got more videos. As I say, it's 57, or this is number 58. My screencast channel is there, but presumably since you are watching this video you will already have discovered that. I just realized. Anyway, because there are so many videos, if you're trying to find something, find a video. I've put up 2 lists of the videos on my website which might help you to find what you're looking for, and some specific videos that might be useful. There are 2 about editing a book as a whole, looking at all sorts of different ways of doing that. There was one I did earlier about proofreading fiction as opposed to editing it, might be useful. And this other one to mention is this is a summary of what's in my book. So I look through my book and just describe all the different parts of the book and how they might be relevant. Well, that's it. I did that all in one take, so there's probably something horrendously wrong in the middle, and I'm hoping not, because it's such a long one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find the macros useful. Bye for now.